Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they confuse thinking with doing and call it preparation. Dreaming is comfortable. Planning feels productive. Talking about goals creates the illusion of movement. Your brain gets the reward before the effort, and that's where everything quietly breaks. The more you talk about who you want to become, the less energy you have to do what needs to be done today. Your mind registers intention as partial achievement. Your body stays still. Time moves forward. Frustration grows. You might recognize yourself here, not as someone lazy, but as someone who knows too much, reflects too much, understands too much, and executes too little. You read. You watch. You learn. You take notes. But when it's time for daily, uncomfortable practice, something always blocks you. There's always a reasonable excuse. You're tired. The timing isn't right. You need more clarity. You'll start tomorrow. Here's the hard truth. Motivation has become a socially acceptable excuse for inaction. Waiting to feel ready sounds responsible, but it's fear in better clothing. Fear of failing, fear of starting as a beginner, fear of realizing that progress is built on boring repetition, not inspiration. The ancient warriors understood this. They didn't ask how they felt. They asked one question: what is the next unavoidable step? And they took it. If you're still listening, that already says something. Subscribing to this channel isn't passive. It's a quiet commitment to stop lying to yourself and start observing honestly. So ask yourself this without excuses. In how many areas of your life are you mentally advanced and physically absent? Because while you wait for motivation, others are building strength in silence. The issue isn't lack of discipline, it's excess stimulation with no physical discharge. Your brain was not designed to handle long-term abstract goals the way you treat them today. It evolved for immediate problems. Eat, move, build, repeat. When you spend hours planning, consuming content, and imagining a better future, you activate reward circuits without paying the cost of action. This creates a dangerous loop. Dopamine rises with ideas. It drops when execution begins. Your brain learns fast. Thinking feels good. Acting feels expensive. So it pushes you back into thought. More videos, more plans, more preparation, less movement. You're not stuck because you're weak. You're stuck because you trained your mind to avoid friction. There's another layer, identity. When you see yourself as someone who will do it, someone preparing, someone who understands, your ego stays protected. Real action threatens that image because it can fail. Thinking keeps everything clean and safe. Eastern philosophy warned about this long ago. Attachment isn't only two things. It's attachment to the image of who you believe you are. The disciplined thinker, the future master, the unrealized potential. And here's the uncomfortable part. The smarter you are, the more refined your excuses become. You don't say I'm avoiding. You say I'm optimizing. You don't say I'm afraid. You say the timing isn't ideal. Your brain loves that. It avoids pain and preserves self-esteem. But there's a cost. Every day without action weakens the connection between decision and movement. The mind gives commands. The body ignores them. That disconnection becomes habit. You don't lose willpower. You lose self. What almost no one talks about is what happens after years of living this way. There's no dramatic collapse, no explosion. What appears is far more dangerous. Comfortable frustration. You function. You work. You survive, but you silently abandon the idea of becoming more than you are. That's the cost of prolonged inaction. It doesn't hurt all at once. It numbs you gradually. The mind adjusts expectations to reduce discomfort What used to be a dream becomes maybe it wasn't meant for me. What used to matter becomes not that important. You don't consciously quit. You rationalize. And that's what makes it hard to reverse. There is a psychological mechanism here. Repeated failure to act teaches the brain that decisions lead nowhere. So it avoids deciding. Indecision becomes default. Procrastination becomes identity. You feel tired of life, but what you really tired of is not trusting yourself anymore. And time starts charging interest. Opportunities that required little effort before now demand double, not because you aged, but because you stayed still too long. The old warriors knew this. They said, stagnation courts the spirit before it touches the body. A warrior who doesn't train doesn't just lose strength. He loses respect for himself. That's the alarm. If nothing changes, you don't stay where you are. You decline. So ask yourself honestly, how much of your anxiety comes from knowing exactly what you should be doing and not doing it? Because the weight you feel isn't overload, it's unfinished action. At you saw me point, the battle stops being external. It happens every day, quietly inside you. On one side, comfort, fatigue, the well-rehearsed argument that today isn't the day. On the other, a quieter voice reminding you that delaying again has a cost. This is the real escalation, not against the world, but against the urge to give in. The mistake is believing discipline is an emotional state. It physism. Discipline is a physical act repeated even while your internal dialogue protests. Comfort speaks loudly because it has been obeyed hundreds of times. Discipline sounds weak because it hasn't. And the most dangerous illusion appears here. Believing tomorrow will be different without changing today. Your brain loves that promise. It reduces guilt without demanding action. But every time you accept that deal, you strengthen the habit of negotiating with yourself and losing. The real fight isn't doing more. It's doing despite fatigue, despite boredom, despite the thought that this won't matter. That's where most people quit. Not because the path is impossible, but because it's repetitive and unglamorous. The old warriors knew this. Comfort isn't defeated by intensity. It's defeated by consistency. One small step today outweighs a perfect plan delayed. This is the peak of the conflict. Either you accept that acting without motivation is part of the path, or you stay trapped in intention forever. There is no third option. The exit was never grand. It was always too simple for the ego to accept. Discipline doesn't begin when you change your life. It begins when you reduce life to the next non-negotiable act. Small, repeatable, almost trivial. That's why it works. You don't need to defeat laziness. You need to remove negotiation. Decide once. Execute daily. No internal debate. Waiting for alignment is the trap. Practice creates alignment. Never the reverse. The samurai didn't trust emotion. They trusted routine. They didn't ask, how do I feel today? They asked what was agreed. That's the shift. Identity based on commitment, not mood. Here's the method, no mysticism. Choose one daily action that represents who you want to become. Make it embarrassingly small, too small to avoid, and do it every day, especially when you don't feel like it. At first, nothing changes externally, but internally, something critical returns. The quiet confidence of someone who does what they decide. That confidence isn't motivation, it's self-respect restored. When that happens, anxiety eases, resistance weakens. The mind stops sabotaging because it learns that action isn't a threat, it is identity. You don't need the right moment. You need to become the kind of person who acts without one. If you stayed until the end, Prove it not to me, but to yourself. In the comments, write this word: discipline. It's not a feeling, it's a choice repeated silently, daily.